this massive universe, humans are a very tiny, tiny component of that. Why are we born with the notion of self? Why do we have identities, my understanding is from a very young age, if we're just tiny components of this much larger universe?
So this is a principle of forgetting. So the forgetting that I'm Brahman is the cause of the limited idea of self. The small I, as they say, and the big I. In Hinduism they use this expression a lot. The capital S self and the small self. They write that many times. Indian philosophers write that a lot. So I am really the big I, capital I, who's become the small I, and have defined my identity, and this identity is preserved because I have desires, because I have attachments. I have defined, so Rajiv, the ego, is the matrix where all kinds of things come together that define who I am. So I've defined myself. If somebody asks a typical person, who are you? Very rarely would a person say, I'm Brahman as Rajiv, and I'm conditioned to think I'm Rajiv, but really I have had an inspiration that tells me otherwise. Most people would say, I'm a person who is married to this person, I have that children, I own this entity, and this is my name, I was born in that place, and I came from this country, I belong to that religion. They basically define all the roles of X on stage. Right? Yes. So they will define all the roles that X is playing on stage, and they will say that in essence they're defining X rather than Joshua as X. So this is the limited vision or illusion or delusion of the individual self, and undoing that is the deconstruction of meditation and all the spiritual practices in Buddhism, Hinduism. They both, all the Dharma traditions basically are deconstruction of this limited self that one has imagined oneself to be.
What happens when you deconstruct that self?
So the state of liberation is in Buddhism called nirvana, and in Hinduism is called moksha, and is a state of consciousness where you're conscious in a very expansive way, a hugely expansive identity of who you are, but also knowing that I'm fitting into this body for now, and I'm going to move around, and I'm going to fall ill, and I'm going to fall down, and I'm going to be hungry, and all the things that happen to a body are going to happen, but I'm not really bothered or concerned or too traumatized by that, because I know that this will pass, and I'll move on. So that's a state of liberation, and in Hinduism sometimes it's called Jivan Mukti, which means living enlightenment. It means this is not an enlightenment, this is not a liberation in heaven, it's a living enlightenment.
So what happens karmically when you achieve that state of living enlightenment?
So if a person is, this is a very good question, if a person is a living enlightened being, then the only reason they even have this body is because some events of the body are yet to finish, because the karma is not fully depleted. So the body will just drop one day, and the person is no longer going to be born into another body. And so they are one with the divine, they are Brahman. They have a recollection of all the roles they've played, of all the enjoyments, whatever they've done, but they're no longer going to be limited in the body form. So it's liberation from the limits of body. And Hindus would argue that if you were to promise a heaven as a physical, as a separate place from this cosmos, and as a separate body from God's presence and from each other, there's many arguments and many debates on why this doesn't work. So the philosophers debate with this technique of negative kind of falsifying, proof by contradiction, proving that if you make a certain assumption, then it doesn't. There's some contradiction. One of the common debating styles that Hindus and Buddhists had when they debated each other for hundreds of years was they both recognized, both Hindus and Buddhists recognize the falsity of the self, Rajiv. They both say that this has to be deconstructed, and so therefore they shared a lot of the meditation techniques also on how to do that. They also refuted that time began, that time has a finite beginning. There's no beginning of time, and hence no end of time. Time has been there beginningless. And before the Big Bang was a prior universe, and before that was another universe. So there's an infinite series of universes. There's never been a first universe. There's always been a prior one. And there will be more universes coming. So this idea of infinite time, rather than finite time, is built into the psyche of Dharmic tradition.
That it just kind of stretches out.
It just goes on. And so the first question you asked, now we can address it. Why?
Yeah.
Okay. So we as humans cannot understand God's why because we don't at this point in time have the same consciousness capacity. Like a child cannot understand, necessarily why the parents are doing all these things. But as the best we can be given, the best explanation we can be given is that God is doing why is God creating? Why is God making himself in the universe? Why is God as Joshua, God as Rajiv going on? Why is all this happening? This is called God's Leela, means divine play. So God, in order to experience himself, is him experiencing himself in all the infinite possible forms that he can have. So it's like you are an artist, you're painting this to enjoy it, you're singing something to enjoy it. So it is God as an artist, creator, performer, is making everything out of himself. Because there does not exist a dualism where something else is also out there. So there's no pre-existing or ex nihilo matter that he could have made things out of. So it's like an artist or a sculptor who doesn't have clay that exists that he can turn into something. So he's making himself into this piece of art. So this is God's art. The whole universe and its existence is a divine play.
Oh, interesting. So in that case, what is our purpose in that? Simply to become a part of that artwork, or simply
to play the roles we are in a dignified manner, and evolve to a point where we are not limited by these roles, where we are not obsessed by all the cravings and all the desires and all the fears. We don't have to worry about those, and to raise our consciousness where we can actually embody this broader, bigger consciousness and live and become living enlightened beings. So that would be the Hindu equivalent of heaven and earth, is a society of